Welcome back to Situation Room. I'm your host Rafae Iqbal, and as we were talking about the Pahalgam false flag operation and India's war hysteria, the propaganda, the hollow claims but no evidence, and criminal silence that we're seeing on part of the Indian media now. We have a new panel of guests that I'd like to introduce. Dr. Waqas Kausar, an IR expert, has joined us in the studios via Zoom link. We've been joined by Shahid MG Kiani, former ambassador, and on phone line we'll be joined by Dr. Salma Malik, who's a foreign affairs expert. I'd like to thank you all for your time and being part of the conversation. Of course, coming towards Dr. Waqas first, when we talk about how the situation is at the moment, in the backdrop of that, one thing that gave rise to such a situation, the communal politics that the BJP RSS had been pursuing since very long. It has resulted in the Muslims being persecuted, the Kashmiris being persecuted throughout India, and not just the Muslims and the Kashmiris, the Sikhs, the Christians, even the lower caste Hindus being persecuted. From one of the world's largest democracy, a secular India, to a saffronized dictatorship. What would you say about that?
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me. I guess you raised a very important point, that how the politics of BJP particularly over the period of time have evolved. If you see the trajectory of the politics, particularly when the use of religion and the sort of a trike of religion, and then the sort of a media, and then the economic joints, and then the politics. This was a very lethal combination, and still is a very lethal combination. The way they try to weaponize the religion, they try to weaponize the communities, and particularly if you see the BJP's politics, this all thing in the context of the power, that they have been trying to bring in the people under the name of one religion, particularly given the nature of the Indian society. If you see that this was the agenda was taken ahead and further propagated by the media, particularly how the communities are divided, how the divisive politics works. I mean, this has been supported by the legal measures. If you see in past, there have been many laws, like there have been Citizen Act, there have been many other laws. They have been trying to bring in the a one unified vote, Hindu vote particularly, and then try to keep the minorities away, because the core constituency of the BJP that they have developed over the period of the time, that has been galvanized around the one theme of sort of a Hindu dominated vote. I mean, it's a risky, of course it's very easy to do such politics in short term, but it has its own consequences, the way we are seeing in India particularly. I mean, see, now you have to bring in so many laws, particularly even to silence the media. Leave the Kashmir aside, I mean, that's a disputed territory. If you see in the mainland India, the laws like DP and other many laws, I mean, there are here to the curb the freedom of speech. If you see, the democratic spaces have reduced, the opposition particularly. If you see the very important thing, I mean, during this entire thing, see how the politics of the BJP works. I mean, this entire thing, they try to master their politics on such crisis. They try to build more constituency, because if you see right now, the religious vote, particularly the way they try to galvanize all this support, particularly after the Pahalgam incident, it's like one community against the other communities, Hindu versus Muslims, Hindu versus others. This is a very dangerous trend that we have witnessed. I mean, in past their themes have been, if you see that Ram, if you see Kashi, if you see Mathura, if you see many other, their politics have been purely directed towards religious themes, try to pitch communities against each other, and that they have been trying to persuade people on that.
Dr. Waqas, do you think such an ideology, such a radical ideology, could have drawn inspiration from that ideology that Hitler had with regards to the Nazis?
See, any extremist ideology, I mean, at the end of the day, the very core idea is that you are intolerant. You don't want to give space. I mean, if you want to function as a democracy, you have to give space to the minorities. You have to talk about I mean, see, the very few days ago, they have signed one approach that the caste census. If you see the history, the trajectory of this, BJP has been very much against this caste census, because of the one thing that they have been trying to say, that it is the Narendra Modi himself call it a sin, pap, that this thing would further divide India. But what did happen? The opposition parties, particularly talking about social justice at that time, the idea was to give them more space in governance and the jobs. The idea is that BJP particularly right now is led by upper caste Hindus, and they are trying to squeeze the spaces for the other communities, not only for the minorities, even for the OBCs, other backward castes as well. So I guess such politics of hate, politics of exclusive politics and division. This always further complicated the situation. If you right now see that, this has put the entire region into the danger of escalation. Because I see it from the lens of the politics, because BJP is, you know, I don't see it's there, they take it as a national security thing, because if you see the politics of the BJP, they're trying to foresee the Bihar's election, they're trying to see, you know, their electoral constituencies, how they would strengthen it, because in the previous elections they have lost, even they have reduced, I mean, from 300 to 243. This was a considerable damage to their own narrative. So now they want to pitch another thing. Pakistan, of course, remains one, very unfortunately, one of the key factors, the way they try to bring Pakistan into their politics and political agenda of hate, you know, Muslim versus the Hindus particularly. So this is dangerous. I mean, for any country to function as a normal society and state, this has repercussions, and these repercussions, you have seen that they have, you know, they transcend the border, and right now we're in a situation where this entire region is actually into danger of escalation.
Well, and that speaks highly of how one troublemaker in the region, one troublemaker with hegemonic designs can plunge the whole region into chaos and turmoil. With that, I'll move towards Shahid MG Kiani for his views as well. Sir, as the conversation has shaped up so far, and the developments that we're seeing with regards to today, a saffronized dictatorship. On the other hand, we see Pakistan reporting the facts on the ground. Well, we'll try reconnecting with Mr. Shahid Kiani, but before that, I'll move towards Dr. Waqas with the same question. So as we were talking about this saffronized dictatorship, and we were talking about the repercussions that this kind of politics has had for the region, do you think it's, you being an expert on international relations, do you think it's just a promotion of the Hindutva ideology, or it could have greater designs for the region, such as when we know the BRI, a lot of effort being done for regional connectivity and connectivity with the Central Asian states, a lot of effort being done for cooperation with regards to the economic front, but at the same time we see one troublemaker, one warmongerer, one with these hegemonic designs and trying to destabilize the whole region, as you mentioned as well.
See, it has both the implications towards the region as well, and within their own country particularly, and vis-a-vis Pakistan as well. I mean, see, the politics from his last 2 tenures, if you see over the period of time, the way he built his politics. I mean, one of the core foundation of his politics was that how you can create that division in the society and then consolidate your own constituency, which is fundamentally based on, you know, hatred, isolation, and keeping, you know, targeting one community. I mean, now this has, of course, a very deep down structural impacts in their own society. If you see their independent media, their press, I mean, right now, if you analyze, this is one of the most, I guess, sad time in their media history, the way their media persons, the way they are trying to create a war hysteria, the way they're part of the propaganda. And
now suddenly criminally silent when questions are being raised.
So I guess because the space for these senior voices, whatever they were there, I guess that is over. The time is over. I guess it's a corporate media, and of course the corporate interest over there. But I guess this is one of the outcome of such politics, that you build a constituency of news, you know, anchors and the media persons, those who are not doing an objective journalism, but of course propagating and promoting a certain political agenda of a party, which is exclusive in nature, which is divisive, which is, you know, further, you know, tearing apart the communities. It's not bringing communities together. And particularly post Pahalgam, if you see that, if you analyze, the society has further polarized. You come across so many incidents where Muslim communities particularly have been targeted. When it comes to Kashmir, I mean, this is so sad to see that the way the Kashmiris are targeted now. I mean, it's not something new for Kashmiris. It's not something, I mean, new for Kashmiris in a sense that they have been subjected to many draconian laws. But the outcome and the consequences of this is you can be seen in the Kashmir, particularly the way the communities have been targeted. The civil spaces have already been, you know, vanished at that time. But, you know, there is assault continuously on the media, particularly their narrative, and targeting a particular community just based on their religion. This is very sad.
Dr. Waqas, in light of what you just said, the EU Disinformation Lab, it has, of course, in the past, it has exposed how India uses propaganda and its tactics that promote hybrid warfare. Misinformation is something the whole world is putting in effort to curb and counter. At the same time, when we talk about the Pahalgam incident, all we saw from the Indian media outlets was misinformation pouring in. Of course, there are credible journalists in India as well that do follow the journalistic ethos, But with all those that we saw with going on very loudly with the warmongering and war hysteria, don't you think all it was misinformation, no facts, no credible evidence to provide, just hollow claims and allegations? What do you say about that in these times when misinformation is such a big problem for the world to face?
See, when you talk about the credible journalism or the journalist over there, I personally see that when you have such type of a media, which is of course a corporate in nature, but which is totally lying and pitching the line of a particular party, and that particular party's agenda, particularly on a political agenda, is so dangerous for the not only internal communities but the region as well. Then the scope for the other people, those who want to question and want to hold the leadership and political constituencies accountable remains very, the chances are very minute. That's what we are exactly seeing, that because it is not sellable over there. One, you have created a constituency of people, those who want to hear something about division, those who want to hear about communalization. This is very sad, because that's the investment that you have done, that you have created an infrastructure that is, the problem with such constituency again is that once you build that constituency, it is difficult to retain that constituency, because the constituency further demands you such polarization, and that's what is happening over there. Now if you go back to the when you talk about the other journalists, I mean, there has to be and there must be some questions of internal accountability. If you see the central party, I guess, meeting of the Congress, if you see that they have also asked, now opposition parties started asking about the accountability, that how did it happen. I guess there is a lot of need to introspect and also see that I mean, this is also a question of morality. I mean, if you're a leader. Exactly,
a question of morality, Dr. Waqas. The reason why I asked this question, India, its strategic allies, those that are the champions of human rights, but India continues with its human rights violations with immunity. No question, no accountability, and not even asking for why India conducts such actions. It has been doing so since very long, and with a lot of impunity and immunity from all those other laws that hold the other countries accountable. What do you say about India's strategic allies giving itself such immunity to go on with such rhetoric?
See, the sad part of right now of the world politics, if you see that human rights have taken a back seat, and it is not in that much, the top priority of the states, democratic states, which is very wrong. I mean, if you see that you have the United Nations Human Rights Council, you have other mechanisms, and I guess this entire world order is very much based on the fundamental, political and human rights that you need to ensure. I guess this is also a question to the international bodies also, not only in this region, even in the context of the Palestine and other. I guess this is a bigger question on the international institutions. When it comes to Kashmir, that Human Rights Council published two reports particularly, and clearly asking for their intervention, them space to to visit the area, to meet the people. I mean, situation in Kashmir, we need not to forget that.
Definitely. Dr. Waqas, very important point that you're saying, and sorry to cut you here, but we have a very important breaking news coming up. Let's hear what the United Nations Secretary General had to say in the Security Council.
Tensions between India and Pakistan are at their highest in years. I deeply respect and I am profoundly grateful to the government of people of both countries and their significant contributions to the work of the United Nations, not least UN peacekeeping. And so it pains me to see relations reaching a boiling point. I understand the raw feelings following the awful terror attack in Pahalgam on 22 April. I once again strongly condemn that attack and extend my condolences to the families of the victims. Targeting civilians is unacceptable, and those responsible must be brought to justice through credible lawful means. It is also essential, especially at this critical hour, to avoid a military confrontation that could easily spin out of control. Now is the time for maximum restraint and stepping back from the brink. That has been my message in my ongoing outreach with both countries. Make no mistake, a military solution is no solution. And I offer my good offices to both governments in the service of peace. The United Nations stands ready to support any initiative that promotes de-escalation, diplomacy, and the renewed commitment to peace. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, you just heard the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres addressing, and he said that tensions between India and Pakistan are their highest in years. He said it is most important to avoid a military confrontation, as it will be chaotic for not just the two countries but the region and the global stakeholders as well. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres was addressing the United Nations Security Council, where he was talking about the escalatory tensions between India and Pakistan, which are their highest in these years, as stated by the Secretary General. He also said that his August office is available to de-escalate tensions between both the sides. There's a major development as the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres had addressed the Security Council. Dr. Waqas, a very important development and a very significant one. The United Nations Secretary General has, of course, offered to mediate between the two countries. Moscow has also done so. I'll come towards you with this question, but I'll move towards Syed MG Kiani, being a former ambassador. So, a very significant development. The United Nations Secretary General has offered his good offices for mediation between the two countries. Earlier, Moscow had also offered mediation, considering Pakistan's demand for a probe, a neutral and international investigation. Pakistan's stance has now been supported by China, Iran, Turkey, Bangladesh and Malaysia as well, so along with other friendly countries. Whereas India on the other side, there's a lot of evidence. Even their own strategic allies have called them out for their extrajudicial illegal activities. What do you say about the diplomatic win for Pakistan with regards to the aftermath of the Pahalgam false flag operation by India?
First of all, this is a very positive development which you shared of the Secretary General of the United Nations, saying that they wants to mediate. But the problem would be that both sides have to agree. Means Pakistan will definitely agree. We have always abided by law. But it will be the Indians who should be able to also accept the offer of the Secretary General. So we'll have to wait, but it's a positive development. Second is that the Indian narrative of the Pahalgam, that we had sent the terrorists there and this and that, has not been accepted by. I have not seen any report of any government of standing having supported the Indians' allegations. These are total allegations. They have nothing of significance, and they are banking upon some country to accept a narrative. The public in India, in which the hype is so high, that to get out of this allegation, the Prime Minister Modi will have to give him some face saving. But that's different. Here the problem is, which I am worried about, as far as any conflict is concerned, I hope it doesn't happen. Pakistan armed forces are ready. India should remember what happened in 2019, and when they alleged and then they got a beating. My own worry is about the Indus Water Treaty. That is the lifeline for Pakistan. And unilaterally, if India has stated they want to get out, that is something in which we should take the things very seriously. Meaning, if I were the advisor, I would send my law minister and my deputy prime minister to the National Court of Justice, to the United Nations, United Security Council, World Bank, and United States, calling upon them that this is a lifeline for Pakistan. It's a natural right as a low riparian country, and it has signed an agreement with the 1960 unilaterally. This country, India, cannot withdraw from it. This is something we should take it very seriously. Forget the rest of the rest. In priority, my would be this one.
That's a very important point that you raised, Shahid Kiani, and I'd like you to elaborate more on that and talk more about that, because when we talk about the Indus Waters Treaty, of course, India is it's habitual and it has patterns of using false flag operations and then using them as a pretext for their unilateral and illegal actions. But when we talk about holding the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance, as you mentioned, taking India to the ICJ and taking the matter to the ICJ, I heard from a friend, and as it is part of the law itself, that you have to notify the other side before taking them to the ICJ with regards to the Indus Waters Treaty. And secondly, going to the United Nations Security Council, Pakistan, what it has been saying and Pakistan's demand and request for an international neutral investigation, it is something that is being supported by all the stakeholders that have talked about it as of yet. But when we talk about the Indian side, they've gone criminally silent with regards to any evidence that they could provide with regards to all the hollow claims that they were making earlier and blaming Pakistan for this false flag operation. What would you say about that?
This is criminality. You see, the Vienna Convention on Treaties 1969 does not allow countries like India to sign an agreement to unilaterally withdraw. You can't do that. I tell you for the reason. For example, they say we want to withdraw. They've already said it. They have to give a reason. This killing of the 26 civilians, we have condemned it. Most of the countries have condemned it. We don't justify this thing. But this cannot be made as according to the 1960 in this important treaty. What has this got to do with the killing of these people in the occupied Kashmir? Meaning, what is this chalk and cheese? You can't do that. You cannot withdraw. You have to give a reason, and the reason should be concerned with the rivers, with the agreement, not with the killing of these people. I'm surprised, and that is why I'm saying is that India has a very weak case. Look in what they did in the removal of the Article 35 in the occupied Kashmir. They removed the rights of the Kashmiris. They want to make them a minority. I just want this is from the same region that the rivers are flowing to Pakistan. We are a lower riparian country. We have a natural right to those rivers. So this is something which I am saying this should be taken very, very seriously by the government. And we should, like a drum beat in these places, I'm saying United States, World Bank, United Nations, and the important capitals of the West, those who uphold law, rule of law. This is something we should do. We should not waste time, because time is of the essence.
Kiani, as you also brought up the United States, those champions of human rights, as they call themselves, whereas their own strategic ally, India, continues with human rights violations, continues with impunity, and continues to violate all those international laws and norms that hold other countries accountable with immunity. What impression do you think gives for those champions of human rights themselves, having their allies conducting such, and it is not just one of their allies? On the one hand, we see Israel doing such and having such radical and extremist policies, and on the other side, we see India with its radical and oppressive policies, both allies of the US, but we see no cognizance being taken as of yet from their side.
Just say, I'm a realist, and I will tell you what is happening. The United States focus is on three things, and I'm telling you in priority. One is what is going on in the Middle East, with Israel being supported. The nuclear negotiations going on with the United States and Iran, which is now in abeyance for a few days. And then the Abraham Accord, in which President Trump is visiting Saudi Arabia. These are three big things in which President Trump is focused. I'm not justifying this good or bad. His attention cannot be deflected by two countries like India and Pakistan, which have been each other's throat for decades. And then a allegation which has no foundation by Moody. My own gut feeling is the Americans may be working behind the scenes, trying to dampen this heat, trying to tell Prime Minister Moody to bring more evidence. They are their supporters, I know, in trying to contain China, Trump. But in this case, They also need, President Trump needs Pakistan in the war against terrorism. Our geopolitical location is such we cannot be ignored. And this is something in which President Trump, maybe in his administration, are asking for more solid evidence against Pakistan, which Prime Minister Modi doesn't have. It looks like he hasn't done his homework, and he is now, he has, taken his people so high, trying to convince them that Pakistan is involved. But there are saner voices inside India asking their government as to where the evidence is, and they are asking something else. They think there's so much of soldiers in that area, so much big army in Indian occupied Kashmir. How this killing of these 26 civilians took place. So these are questions Prime Minister Modi will have to answer.
Definitely, Shahid Kiani, of course, very important points that you've raised, and something the US can ask India, of course, having respect and regard for human rights, they can ask India to do more on that. Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar, I'd like to come towards you as the conversation up so far, and your earlier comment on India's allies, many of them being in the western side of the world. Of course, India continues with its radical policies with immunity, as you also mentioned earlier, has similarities and draws inspiration from that of the policies seen from the Nazi regime. But still, nobody calls it out for its policies of hatred. These policies of hatred and radicalism that hurt and damage the very essence of those human rights or those fundamental values that the West, the Europe, the American society had been promoting since very long.
See, I guess if you see the international bodies, particularly working, particularly when we spoke about the United Nations Human Rights Council reports, particularly on Kashmir in past. I mean, right now they're not allowing them the entry over there. I guess they've openly mentioned about human rights crisis, particularly in the disputed territory, occupied Jammu and Kashmir, particularly one. Second, the all international bodies, particularly if you talk about the freedom of press, if you see that index, their rating has gone down below because of the measures they have taken, particularly to curb the freedom of speech, to promote such divisive and politics of hatred in the society. When it comes to minorities, I mean, many international organizations are reporting the situation of the minorities, and the way systematically the regime, particularly BJP, is targeting the minorities through legal measures like Waqf. If you see very recently, if you see the Waqf bill, and in past Citizen Act and many other legal measures to disenfranchise people. So on the other hand, I mean, I won't take it like that. I see in that context, I mean, the world is taking the notice of that. The problem right now is, of course, the politics around the world, sadly the economic front and the economy that is shaping the relationships, I mean, between the countries, and particularly West, I guess, if you see that. There's a broader and bigger question on the international systems now, on the institutions as well.
That's what I was coming towards.
Yes, so there's a bigger question now, and particularly if you see overall situation, the people are asking the questions that, what are the priorities at the end of the day if you want to function as a human rights, as a functional democracy. You need to have the human rights protected. You need to follow the basic fundamentals of democracy. I mean, it's not an ideal situation, of course. It's far from ideal situation in the West even right now. If you see that the way the politics is shaping up, the way the very fundamentals, and the institutions like United Nations, Human Rights Council, Security Council, all these institutions were made with some purpose and a collective wisdom. If you want to defeat that collective wisdom, and it is very difficult then you to maintain and have that order where you can have a sort of a value system of justice and equality. Now this is of course a bigger question. Now when it comes to the BJP's regime within India, I mean, see, it has its own repercussions. I mean, people have been kept on saying that such politics would have, a broader regional consequences, not within for the India, but, for the region. And, now we are witnessing that even the Secretary General United Nations have pointed out about, de-escalation and offering a good office. I guess this indicates that, if you neglect human rights, if try to force the communities through undemocratic means, particularly, it has its own consequences. In short term, you might win the elections, but you know, you disrupt that ecosystem of a society that is organically evolved and developed, and that's what we are saying, that a society within right now is, you know, at daggers drawn,
But
in politics, in
Dr.
religion, in economy, in many states. I mean, just want to say one thing. If you see the economic indicators as well, I mean, we need to look deep down that how that wealth creation is equally distributed in the society. That's an also indicator. It's not about, you know, getting few people rich or upper class people, you know, getting wealthier and wealthier. It's not only an economic indicator, but how the wealth is equally distributed in society. But when your own politics, when your own laws are so discriminatory in nature that it empowers a certain community, and you know, when you call yourself, it's a national security issue and you want to come for a war with a country, and then suddenly you come across that senses because you see that your politics of religion is defeated, and now you want to bring that social justice and other thing into the, you know, into your politics. So this also gives an impression that, look, you have to have a certain system which is accountable, which is transparent, and it has its own significance for internal and external regional implications as well. So if you see, I mean, I won't say that. I agree that right now there's I mean, the countries are not taking, you know, the notice of human rights violation of such politics, but I guess this is detrimental to the society for long term, and this is what we have seen in 10-12 years period of time, the way the society has shaped and the way the consequence, I mean, look towards the Kashmir particularly. You have two assumptions on Kashmir, that after 5th of August 2019 that, you know, the matter is solved and we have brought the economic empowerment of the people, and look, the tourism and all that things is happening and people are happy and all that. Suddenly an incident happened and you tracked down, you know, you sort of brought in the security forces. Of course they are there over there, and but you have started targeting a particular community. This indicates that until unless you very deliberately in an informed way do not address the root causes of broader conflict and issues, you know, this is an artificial sort of peace, and this has nothing to do with the core society. The political prisoners are in the jail right now, and it's over the long period of time they are there. You have the freedom of information and press issues over there. The civil society space is not there. What sort of solution is this? I mean, this also again raises the question that how are you looking towards the region? Is it just through your political lens that you want to achieve a political agenda, or you want a broader peace and just solution to the issues?
Definitely, Dr. Waqas, questions after questions that are being raised, and no answer that is coming from the Indian side. With regards to that, Dr. Salma Malik, I'd like to include her in the question as well. She's a foreign affairs expert, and as the conversation has shaped up, Dr. Salma, the United Nations Secretary General, he just a while ago addressed the Security Council, where he said his good officers are available for mediation. Moscow has also given that offer today. But when we talk about this whole situation, Pahalgam false flag operation, it was no evidence provided by India, yet we saw the blame game, Pakistan being alleged for it. Pakistan denied unequivocally. The organization that India was blaming for it denied unequivocally any involvement. Pakistan has asked for a neutral, impartial international investigation. When we hear mediation, do you think that's what we need, or do we need accountability for the Indian side? There's the one that used this pretext. They started this propaganda with regards to the false flag operation. They provided no evidence. Pakistan has just reported the facts and countered the propaganda and misinformation that they were propagating with such confidence and boldly in the world. So mediation or accountability, you being a foreign affairs expert, I'd like your insight on that.
Thank you very much for having me in your program. I think there's a need for both. And at this particular point, there's a need for mediation to start with, so that the hype that India has created just out of nothing, and this hysteria and warmongering and getting trapped into this commitment, trapped by their commitment trap, this all needs to simmer down through a very logical way. I mean, Modi and his minions really don't know how to get out of this situation. They have created such a hysteria that it's very difficult for them to step down. That's the fact that, as you just mentioned, there is no evidence, there is no follow-up statement coming from Modi. The services chiefs, ex-servicemen, all have very divergent perspective on this aspect, and he's going right, left, and center, terminating people from their key positions because they don't agree to his falsified agenda. So let alone to say that we should agree to that, or the international community would agree to it. But we need to also look at one aspect is that when it comes to India's domestic audience, the type of media fog that India is very capable of developing is pretty, pretty a fascinating case study to see. Just today I was looking at the clip which talks about Abhinandan downing an F-16 and doing this and doing that, and make 21 Bison with this 2017 F-16 and all. So, I mean, the type of narrative that circulates within India and creates an echo chamber is very different from the type of press that we are accustomed to. And openness, having divergent perspectives, and choosing anything out of that. But coming back to this particular notion, first we need mediation from civil voices to bring this situation down to a level where India comfortably gets itself out of the situation that itself has created. And then it doesn't even feel embarrassed enough that we have to do something. They can always say that, oh, Pakistanis, we had to do this because such and such a good friend compelled us to simmer down. Otherwise, we would have really broken into kingdom come, the type of silly narrative that India keeps on portraying. After that, what is required is accountability, big time accountability when it comes to human rights, when it comes to the code of conduct, when it comes to how can India suddenly decide that it can unilaterally do away with a water treaty, which is the first right of any country which is a lower riparian state. And India by itself is not in half of the rivers case in upper riparian states, but middle riparian states. So there has to be an accountability so that the country has become cautious of what they're doing. But unfortunately, as Dr. Waqas was also pointing out, there is an unfortunate situation that we are all facing at this moment is that those who champion being custodians of international norms and ethics, morals, and values, they are willfully violating those values and norms themselves. As a result of this, people such as Moody, who are adventurous, who love to create controversial voice rights, they get a new lease of life and they become more proactive that there is this vacuum in which we can operate and do whatever we feel like doing. And getting the vision. 2019 we did that. This is not the first false flag operation that they have carried out. They have done that before. In possibly with that. And several other notions. And I think it's high time that the world realizes that issues such as Jammu and Kashmir, issues such as Palestine, are not things managed issues. These are genuine issues which require a very genuine and deep rooted thought and not just look at a situation where each and every person in that country or that region is expelled or removed so that there's a new geographic reality. There's enough of blindness when it comes to morality and values, and I think they're fast fading out of that situation. So not only there's a need to bring back accountability into the code of conduct of people like Modi, and we still talk about Hitler. I think we're creating another Hitler, and we're willfully creating it. So if we want to prevent another Holocaust from taking place, accountability is the order of the day, and also a word of caution that don't do what you're doing. There is a system that values norms and ethics.
Definitely no evidence that they have to provide. Coming towards the studios, Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar, as the conversation has shaped up so far. The United Nations, not always the United Nations. It once was the League of Nations. And why it became the United Nations was because it could not owe up to the original objectives that it had. Two conflicts going on in the world at the moment. A very tense situation in South Asia, what we're seeing. And now, when we talk about and when we hear these efforts for mediation, do you think that's what Pakistan needs, or we need accountability for India is what the world needs, and not just Pakistan?
I guess the statement from the Secretary General is very encouraging, particularly asking for restraint and then asking for credible. One of the important thing was to come up with the credible and lawful means to address. I guess this is important that the world body, I guess this is the responsibility, and they're taking the, you know, sort of assuming that responsibility and offering their good offices, particularly to mediate and, you know, ease the tensions. I guess we shouldn't forget that even the very fundamental and the core issue that we all talk about, that also is you know, in the United Nations Security Council's resolutions when we talk about the Jammu and Kashmir. I guess there is no way other than, you know, you talk to each other, you build that, you know, element of trust. You know, at least there has to be some
Well, Pakistan has tried over and over.
Yes. And I guess Pakistan's stance is very, that's very important, and also that's very correct way of dealing with things, that the doors for the negotiations or engagement are always open. Even in the worst crisis in the world in the past history, if you see that the nations at the end of the day engaged. But of course, one has to act in a responsible and responsive way. Leveling allegations without, you know, evidence, and then, you know, creating an environment just for the sake of your own politics and political gains, that's dangerous. That can go either way. So I guess there with negotiation also, if you're a bigger country, you need to be more responsible. You need to be more, you know, aware and informed, and have to take, you know, the role which is more role of a responsibility, instead of, you know, you sort of keep the entire region, you know, hostage to your own politics. It might happen one, but it never happens every day. So you need to be cautious about it, that it has, you know, the consequences, and it could go anyway. So that's I guess the key idea of this conversation also, that the politics have to be dealt in a very serious way, not to divide communities, not to, you know, disenfranchise communities, and not to create an environment where it is difficult for you to come back, you know, to the normal situation. That's what's happening over there, because the constituencies burden is so much that you have created such a hysteria that they're compelling you to take some actions because of your own politics. This is I guess a very sad situation.
Peace, peace and peace. Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar, thank you for your insights, and of course a very pragmatic and reasonable approach that you highlighted. And what's the difference that I'm seeing? If this were an Indian show, they would have gone with the ring, but we on Pakistan always very responsible and very reasonable, and we hope the saner voices on the other side also prevail, and the questions that are being raised now are answered. That's all that we have from the Situation Room for today. We are discussing the Pahalgam false flag operation, India's war hysteria and their hollow claims, no evidence, and in addition to that, they stand how they're facing diplomatic isolation as well because of their communal politics and their policies that promote hate speech and hate within society itself. Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar, an IR expert, thank you for joining us in the studios. I'd also like to thank Shahid MG Kiani, former ambassador, and Dr. Salma Malik for being part of the conversation. That's all that we have for today. See you all same time tomorrow. Till then, take care.